Welcome to God Hockey, Episode 1. Thanks so much for tuning in and joining us today. My goal is to bring you interesting conversations with some of the people I've met over the past 20 years in the hockey industry. I'll be profiling coaches, players, and some of the biggest brand names in equipment. Today's episode is with Jorg Achenbach of True Hockey. Jorg spends a lot of his time hanging with NHLers like Carey Price and Mitch Marner. Jorg's one of the biggest personalities in the game and has spent most of his life inside and outside of NHL dressing rooms. Please remember to like and subscribe so you'll be notified when new content is available. And now, enjoy the episode. Episode 1, Jorg Achenbach, True Hockey. We might as well get it started. So do me a favor. This is gonna answer or solve the puzzle that many people around the hockey world have been wondering. How do you pronounce your last name?
Achenbach.
Okay, pretty simple, right?
Yeah.
So I've often had conversations with people going something like, "Yeah, I talked to this guy George, and he was telling me about equipment. He said to go see you." And I said,
Yeah.
"George," I said, "I don't even know. He works for one of the companies." I'm like, "George, I don't know."
That's funny.
So, I mean, growing up, obviously, it was probably interesting. It's Dutch. Is that what it is?
No, my last name's German. I was born in Germany.
Yeah.
I was actually born in Germany and came here as a baby. But my first name's Swedish. It's a Norwegian first name, Jorg.
Right, with the sort of Y, with the
Right.
YJ.
Yeah, exactly. The Y sound, 2 dots over the O. Yep, it's very Norwegian. Yeah.
So you get here basically as a baby.
Yep.
And in Winnipeg.
Yeah. Winnipeg.
That's where the story starts. And
Correct,
talk to me a little bit about Winnipeg and how you got into hockey even at the younger ages.
Yeah, so I mean, I was always a hockey fan. I think I started living, as a kid and skating and doing all the things, playing to the community clubs and stuff. The stuff that all Canadian kids kind of do. And then together with my best friend, who is Tony DaCosta, he's the equipment manager for the Minnesota Wild. A lot of guys know him. So Tony and I grew up together since grade 3. We were best friends in school. And we started hanging around the arena, Winnipeg Arena, in 1979-80. My mom happened to work at the mall attached in a jewelry store. So we would go down there with her on the weekends, and we would go over to the arena and go to the practices, the Jets practices. And this is when they were still open to the public. So we actually got in, and we would sit in the stands. We would collect pucks, and we'd take them back down to the bench. And that's kind of how we just started hanging around. And then all of a sudden, the NHL closed the practices to public.
Right.
And we had already had several months in. So players like Morris Lukowich and Jimmy Mann, and these guys knew us. And Fergie, more importantly, John Ferguson. So they would get us in. So now you've got an arena close to the public, and we're the only kids that are allowed in there. Yeah.
So this is like This is the first year in the NHL.
Yeah.
Then
Dave Babbage was our first draft that year. Yeah. So that year they really started the NHL really kind of mandated that each home team supply stick boys or attendants for the visitors.
Yeah.
So that's where we got our break. Pat O'Neill, who's the equipment manager for the Vancouver Canucks, was the Jets equipment manager at the time. And they liked us. Fergie liked us. They approached us. They approached our parents. And all of a sudden we became stick boys for the Winnipeg Jets, working in the visitors' dressing room. So through the 80s, I'm on the bench with the Oilers and the Flames and the Canucks. And so obviously the greatest years of Gretzky. And I mean, very blessed, not lost on me, right?
It couldn't have been a more exciting childhood for a kid, especially a hockey fan.
Very much.
And I think that's been obviously you're on the manufacturer side now, and you have been for obviously quite a while, but I think you've always been like really at home in the room, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think, starting there, I mean, getting my first kind of 20 years almost there, right? Because I worked with the Jets till they left. And then with the Moose for another 10 years in the AHL before Vaughn plucked me and moved me here basically in 2005, right?
Right. Yeah. So that's basically almost like lockout era. So we go to working with Vaughn. You're mostly WHL and junior, or were you
So what happened was Stan Smeal actually recommended me to the president of Vaughan. I was the equipment guy for the Moose and working in the dressing room with Zinger, and Vaughan was looking for somebody, and Stan Smeal's best friend is Scott Carter, who's the president of Vaughan. They're really tight. And Scott was on the phone with him one day just saying, we need a rep. We need somebody in Manitoba, Saskatchewan. Like they have no market share. And Stan says, well, we got this guy in the room here who just seems to know everybody in hockey. He's been around forever, Jorg, So Scott phoned me one day, and this was a great story. He phoned me one day. I didn't know the call was really coming. And Scott Carter phones and he says, hi, is Jorg there? This is Scott Carter calling. I go, okay. I go, that's me. He goes, and I go, who you with? And he goes, Vaughan. And I'm like, Vaughan who? Like, what? Like, it didn't even dawn on me that I was getting
a call from
Toronto goalie company. So yeah, here's this guy, Stan Smeal's pumping my tire, telling me how many people I know and how much I know about hockey. I don't even know who Vaughan is.
Never
so Scott Carter to this day kind of bugs me, gives me the Vaughan who, So, yeah. But yeah, it fell in my lap. In 2000, Vaughan hired me. So I worked 5 years in Winnipeg before they moved me here.
Right. So you go on to, working with pros, working with junior and so junior hockey. One day you walk into a dressing room in Tri-Cities and you meet a 15-year-old or 16-year-old kid from way up north BC named Carey Price.
Yeah.
And he's already wearing the gear, or you're getting him into it, and he takes off. He's the next phenomenon. The All Black Team Canada pad.
Yeah, him and Wardo were my first two guys, basically. My first two big guys, junior, And then pro, the guy I worked with first and foremost was Alex Auld. Who was with the Moose at the time. So he was kind of one of my big pros that I really learned and did a lot of talking with and communicating with, and still do to this day. I still talk to him. But Pricer and Warder, they're kind of my I rode that wave for a long time with those two guys. They're fantastic people.
I mean, if you look even from we're talking a lot about Vaughan so far, but I mean, a lot of the successes that Vaughan had coming out of that, off of the original V1 lines, you had sort of that around that lockout time, Reebok by CCM, they start doing their thing. It starts becoming popular. Vaughan maybe almost taking a little bit of a back seat. And then there's this kid with this iceberg graphic winning a Stanley Cup in Carolina.
Right.
And you've got Carey at the World Juniors. And then all of a sudden, it's basically right back on the forefront, right back to number one. Yeah. I mean, even back then I was, I'm selling, iceberg graphic Vaughan velocities, hand over fist. Guys can't get enough of them. It instantly becomes the number one graphic. And then everyone wants to know what Carey Price is going to do, what he's going to keep wearing and things like that. And that was such a big moment that really, I mean, not necessarily carried the brand, but certainly it's something that sort of vaulted it back, like sort of into the forefront and really kept it, you go on another 4 or 5 years or so, you end up with like Jonathan Quick. That's sort of another big kick that they got. Such an exciting goalie, especially an American goalie. And they started winning cups down in LA. So we move on from there. We don't want to go too much Vaughan, obviously, because we're here to talk a little bit, at least, about your current gig. So you're no longer there with them. True at this point has no goalie footing of any kind. So they bring you in. You're working on the skate side, the stick side.
I was with VH, yeah. So I left Vaughan. When I left Vaughan at the end of 2014, I got hired about 5 months later by VH, which was VH at the time. With Scott Van Horn, he personally hired me. So Mark Chipman made the connection for us, basically, for the owner of the Jets, who's a close friend of mine. And unbeknownst to me, was actually an investor in VH at the time. He was a silent partner because it was a Winnipeg-based company. Buff was wearing the skates, and he really believed in Scott and the product. So he kind of put us together. VH had a product, but they had no outlet into the NHL. They had no ins into dressing rooms. They had like 9 guys on the Jets wearing it, and that was kind of it. And Ryan Miller, and that was it. So I got kind of brought in. I flew in, met with Scott. had a great meeting with him, and he hired me. And first thing we did is I dragged him and his other partner to the NHL meetings, the trainers meetings. And, we kind of made some inroads pretty quick. We launched the goalie skate, and again, to my luck, I guess it was a fantastic product. The timing was incredible, and it took off, and
well, that's the key.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, the skate it's the best skate ever. Like it's unbelievable. I remember saying to Scott, like, Scott, I think I could get you, he had 2 or 3 guys in the NHL. And I remember having a conversation saying, I think I can get you 15, 18 goalies in the NHL. And he's doing the math going, that's like 25% of the league. He goes, are you serious? I go, yeah, I know I can. And I mean, today we sit at 44 of 62 goals. So
now you're on like 2/3. Yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, he's brilliant. He's a brilliant guy.
Well, that really is the beautiful part about the skate is, they scan your foot, they take a 3D image of your foot, and they just build a skate around it.
Yeah.
It's not foolproof. Obviously it takes some good people to make them, but realistically, like, you can't go wrong by scanning someone's foot, making a 3D form, and then away you go. The skate is, besides heating them up almost just to get your foot in, it's bang on, ready to go. You never have. I think in the amount of time that I've been selling them, I've had one guy who had a pair remade, and it was for one boot. I think it was just one. A couple other guys, every once in a while, you toy around with the foams in the toe. You heat it a second time,
right?
And they're just beautiful. Yeah. I think some of the key is too, you do really have to know how to put these things on.
Right.
You cannot just go jam your foot in.
Right.
Or it's
got to turn your foot a little, and then
I always say to a guy, hand on the skate, and I say, just imagine trying to move like a couch into a dorm room. You're moving it up the stairs, and you just gotta sort of twist it in there a little bit.
You gotta finesse it,
and then you give it a couple whacks back, and away you go. Like there's not much that can beat it.
Yeah,
and I mean, evidence is
for goalies. The responsiveness of the skate is incredible for goalies. Like I remember it being a great thing for players, and the goalie thing was kind of a little bit of an unknown early, right? We didn't know how it was going to be, and I was looking at this going, man, like when you think of what a goalie does when they move, where they have to go from a spot, get to a spot. I mean, what initiates that is that push, that drive, right? So, I mean, if you have no negative space and your foot already up against the outer wall of the skate, and you engage your foot and you drive it, to get that push.
Yep.
And
right there.
That energy has nowhere to go but right to the ice. There's no loss of energy, no time lag, no dissipation. Like that energy goes right to the ice. So you get such a strong push. I remember being in Kelowna with Pricer that first summer. I flew to Kelowna, got him into the skate. This is in 2015. And I'm standing with his dad, Jerry, and I'm watching him in these skates, and he is over sliding, like he's pushing and he's getting across, and he has to kind of dive back to make this save because he's getting more push than he ever got, or he's getting more force from the same push, right?
Yeah.
So a higher result from the same push. So he kind of had to relearn. You almost have to muscle memory yourself into a new.
Well, you don't have to overdo it,
right, to get there, right?
Yeah, you don't have to overdo it. You don't have to. You don't have to. You're not wasting energy. You're just putting yourself in the right position.
Yeah.
So let's go a little bit 1-piece versus 2-piece. Personal preference. Having never worn it on the ice, I've always found the 1-piece to me obviously is a little heavier, and it's heavy in the obviously the holder, the built-in holder. It seems to me that although it is a little heavier, that the added material, since it's not riveted in and it's not a separate part, it only goes even further to the benefit of it being a completely one piece.
Yeah, it's a stronger push skate because you don't have that seam. Whenever you have a seam between a holder and a boot with the rivets, there's going to be movement, right? Yeah. There's going to be flex. There's going to be torque. When you don't have that, There's no flex, no torque. So again, more energy, all encompassing energy, right through to the ice.
And it's complete carbon too. It's not a weaker material under a stronger material. It's completely consistent all the way through. Yeah. And so what would you have? So roughly even guys that are using the one piece and guys that are using the two piece.
You know what? It was, I'd have to look at the numbers now, because it was, for the longest time, it was kind of like a 50-50 split. It was pretty even down the middle. There really wasn't. And now lately I've had, like, I just flipped Pricer into a one piece, as everybody probably knows, about a month. That might be 6 weeks ago now, something like that. And he never wanted any part of the one piece for the longest time. It was just, he didn't like it. I just flipped James Reimer last week, 2 weeks ago. He just went to the one piece. He used to want no part of it, but he likes that white painted chassis that I do now for Pricer and Allen, right? That's a one of for those guys. So he kind of went. So it's a few more are going to that now, but it's very much, it's very much split pretty much down the middle. And, you know, people ask me that all the time, what's a better skate? And it really, you're talking about, you're only really differentiating from the bottom of the boot to the ice. The boot is the same, right? It doesn't matter if you buy our one piece, our two piece, or you put an inline chassis on. At the end of the day, it's your foot mold, right?
I'm dancing.
So that's all the same. So now just decide, pick your poison from the bottom of the boot to the ice. You want a one piece, you want a two piece, you want a cowling, like, you know, like some guys are still, Reimer up to now was still in cowlings. There's guys who still skate on Bauer cowlings or whatever. So pick what you want, right? It's the boot really that is the boot is the fairy dust. It really, it all lies in the boot and that fit, and that creates your push. That creates all the magical things, right? That's
your first and foremost. That's 100%. What's really getting you there.
Yeah.
The rest is only whatever, just whatever works or whatever you're comfortable with.
It's kind of semantics. Yeah. You get a guy like Alex Stalock, like he would want to be on a two piece because it's higher, and a shorter goalie. If you can take away more to the bar, you'll take that height. Pricer never used to like the two piece. He doesn't like, because he's so tall, he doesn't like that disconnect from the ice. He always used to say to me, I feel too disconnected from the ice on two piece, whether it's a Bauer holder, our holder. So he liked cowlings, you know, the graph, and he was very low to the ice. So it's so much preference. It really is all preference.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
It makes sense. I mean, everybody, you know, goalies being what they are, they've kind of got to, they can't be in their head about it anyway.
Yeah.
So once we move from the skates, obviously CCM and Lefebvre have their deal.
Right.
That runs out Jan 1, 2019.
Yeah.
And I would guess immediately after that, True starts thinking about it, looking into it, doing their due diligence on it.
Right.
Before they decide to go in and say, listen, we want you to be a part, not we want to be a part of you, we want you to be a part of us.
Right.
Not, and then, so we start to see the first sort of inklings of that coming out of the COVID lockdowns, where in the bubble, you start to see these guys with this gear with no names on it. Everybody knows what it is, obviously.
Yeah.
It's all the talk of all the goalie boards and all the message groups and and even just in the shops, even guys coming in to see me and they're like, did you see that? So what are those? And then we start to find out, even as the bubble goes on, I guess it would be that, no, this is a thing, and True is going to be acquiring Lefebvre, and it's only crossed T's and dotted I's.
Yeah.
And I guess at first, I mean, I even remember having discussions with people where they would say, you know, Lefebvre, they're gonna go at it with the NHL guys, and I was a little bit like hesitant to really think that they would gain any foothold. Obviously, they'd always have a few guys. I mean, Jonathan Bernier, I think, was the one guy consistently he's just been a Lefebvre guy. I think he's just
Fleury too.
Fleury too, of course.
Very, very close to the family, right?
Yeah. And then you've got But then you've got guys who are, contract guys, and we know that those you can rip those up pretty easy on either end.
Yeah.
But you get it then where you start to see where really the loyalty lies with just the sheer number of guys who show up, training camp this year even. And actually guys who didn't even wear it before. Freddie Anderson's wearing Anderson's wearing True, and he had been a Bauer guy for a long time. And
see, in the Freddie Anderson one, there's some pretty you kind of jumped along that entire timeline, and a lot of it is pretty accurate. December 31st, the deal ended.
Mm-hmm.
We had already been in talks with Lefebvre for some time because they knew it was coming to an end. It was no secret. And even in those months, up and before the end of their official contract, my phone was blowing up. Like, it was the hardest thing in my life to keep secret. Like, of all the things that I've seen in dressing rooms, and that, you know what I mean? Like, this was a tough one because I was so married to this project. I was so involved in this from day one. Like, I'll never forget when my boss had me come to Ottawa, because we had been talking about acquiring a goalie company or going into the goalie space, let's say.
Yeah.
Do we go it alone? Do we open our own factory? Do we buy a brand like a Passau or a Konecki or something? Do we try to get Vaughn? Do we, what's our approach? So Lefebvre, I never heard the name mentioned ever to me. Like, it was not even in my wheelhouse at the time. He sits me down in this cafe in Ottawa, and we're having lunch, and he says, "I'm going to say to a name to you, and I want you to tell me what you think." And he says, Lefebvre. And I'm like, Lefebvre, like from Montreal, like the goalie company? He goes, yeah. He goes, what do you think of them? I would love to have a picture of my face from that.
Yeah, sure.
Because I was like, you have got to be kidding me. Like, I didn't even know this was, I had no idea what was going on with this CCM breakup, And I said, man, because, I knew Vaughn wasn't going to happen. Like, Mike isn't selling that, or, it's just a lot of things I know. I get the landscape, right? So that one was out of left field to me. And I tell you, I was like, wow, if we could get them, like, I just knew my relationships with goalies. I knew, you know what I mean? I know what I know about the business. And I said, man, this could be huge for us. Like, and ever since that day, it was reports after reports giving them an overview. Like, I remember sending messages to my bosses who are not goalie people, telling them, oh yeah, like a goalie will wear 6 sets of pads and 12 to 15 sets of gloves. That's an average for a starter. That's what my guys wear. And they're looking at me like I'm stoned. Like, I have 3 heads. Like, what? Who goes through, what do you mean 6 sets of pads? Like, in a season, Yeah. And it was, the learning curve for all of us is astronomical.
It's like, boy, if you thought I was good at selling skates, wait till we get a goalie. Wait till we get a goalie pad.
Oh, unbelievable.
And obviously, blessing. Like, it couldn't have been more perfect. Obviously, just you really were just what they needed. Going back to when you first came on, and it couldn't have been better once it launched with the goal. Obviously, it's a forte for you, obviously, because of the connections,
right? And
it's just the timing, just that deal was running out, that CCM was headed in another direction, and I sort of get the feeling that they didn't see that many goalies staying as Lefebvre goalies,
right?
And I don't even know if Lefebvre thought that many goalies would stay as Lefebvre goalies. Maybe they did because of the relationships, but I know for me, to see all of them, but a few. And certainly like the biggest names, obviously the 2 guys behind you, Carey, Fleury, and Fleury was almost, I thought, a no-brainer. And realistically, I guess you just sort of see them all kind of fall into line, and Hellebuck, and there's just so many guys, and just go, oh, there's another one, there's another one, there's another one.
Yeah, and even in season now, late, like, it's funny, we had I have a great relationship with Pekka Rinne and UC Saros, both guys in the Skates. I've known Pex for years. I love him. He's a fantastic human being. But at first, he had a loyalty with CCM. He stayed with their stuff, and he stayed in their E-Flex, and then the Axis, and Saros stayed with the Axis. And I said to our guys, like, just because I know, Pat Lefebvre was, he has some relationships with some of these guys, but everything was he was kind of the behind the scenes guy, right? He is that. He's a production guy. He's brilliant. I mean, the product is incredible. Like, I have had zero returns, zero manufacturing issues with players. It's unbelievable how high quality this stuff is coming out of there. But the relationship side, yeah, I mean, I knew, when Pat wanted us, wanted to get everybody he had, and I get that. I mean, that's organic. But, some guys, like you said, some guys stayed the course a bit, and, Pekka Rene stayed. And I used to say to our guys, just wait, just sit back. This stuff from CCM that I just feel, and this is a personal opinion, but I just don't think for the NHL guys that Chinese stuff meets the consistency, meets the quality and the stuff that they need, or that they're sought after,
Yep.
So I just said, let's just wait. And sure enough, towards 2/3 of the season in, Pekka calls. And then I was joking with our guys. I said, we're under a month and Saros is going to call. I said, I'm telling you, Saros, because they're sitting beside each other in a room. I know how close they are. Like, Pex has got his new stuff. He's playing well. He loves it. And I know Saros is going to be looking over going, hey, and sure enough, Saros calls, now he's in it. So, you just got to sit back and get the guys you can get. And, lots is built on the Freddie thing as a pure relationship thing. He approached me and I worked very closely with him, obviously, being in Toronto, even the pandemic, I got to see him a little bit. And that was a good process to take a guy like that from Bauer, from a not CCM brand, and bring him over to something totally different, and now Matt Murray, I got over from, at the very end here, even though he had those pads since like October, I made those for him. But yeah. So now he's kind of in our stuff, and probably as it sits, we'll probably start the season in our stuff, I'm hoping. So, he's another flip over from Vaughn, and he was a longtime Vaughn guy, right? So it's been fun. I mean, I've been blessed with on the VH side and now on the Lefebvre side, and even back when I was with Vaughn, but I've always had fantastic products, amazing products, amazing factories behind me. And really all I've had to do is kind of build and bring my Rolodex to the table. Really, that's it. Yeah. I bring the relationships, and then I use these fantastic companies. Yeah. And it just works, and I'm blessed. I'm really blessed.
You've never had to, convince anybody to wear the stuff.
Right.
All you have to do is show it to them. Yeah. You're with a top brand, you're with, people that go the extra mile for the quality and those types of things.
Absolutely. And this family does it, man. These guys are unbelievable, committed to quality.
Yeah. Yeah. So if we look back from that 2004-ish era to now, what are the biggest differences from the goalies from then in terms of the asks, or in terms of what they approach you with to say what guys now are looking for? Maybe I'll ask like this. Like, I know if you take a goalie who's coming into the league now,
right?
He's grown up in the customizer world.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I don't know if guys used to say, well, I play on a red and white team, so just don't put any blue on it. And then, but are there a lot of things that guys focus on now that they maybe didn't used to, or there's things that guys used to ask a lot for that have become?
That's a great question. I think with a lot of guys, I find it, as like back in my Vaughn days, I did retail. I owned the Ontario retail territory, and I did pro. So I was really lucky to be able to connect with guys like you and Soggy. And, it's no secret that I come to you a lot of times when I have questions or I need to get a picture of the landscape. What I do, I email Dana, or I call a couple guys, and I have those relationships. I'm happy to. So even back in those retail days, there's always been that, and there's always been that pull to, what does Carey Price wear? What does Carey Price wear? You know what I mean? Like, I get it from NHL guys, and I'm not going to sewer guys or name names, but I have guys this year texting me and going, what's Pricer got? What's that pad? Or what's the, does he do anything different? Or, what's his strapping or what? It's unbelievable.
Tops look a little more flexed in than mine.
It's unreal how he leads the charge. Like it's, and so there's been a lot of that over the years, but now as goalies grow, as like you say, as the position develops, and I think there's so much more technology and out there. There's YouTube videos, guys doing, kind of taking the pad apart and saying this, that, and yeah. So you get a lot more buzzwords, like the inside edge and the firmness and the stiffness and all these, these FRS, the leg strapping and the single leg and the going down to the calf with the strap rather than behind the knee, which everybody thought
Carey Price strapping.
Yeah, and everybody thought, and that's a hilarious story in itself. You could talk about this stuff for hours, but people used to say to me, I want it like, that strap down to the calf like Carey Price. And people would ask me like, why, what does it do? And I would read on web boards all these stories about why he does it. Well, I'm going to tell you why he does it. I'm going to say it right on here so everybody doesn't.
Please do. Please do. This is what we're trying to do here.
He doesn't like anything touching the back of his leg. He has a sensitive area behind and it bugs him. And that's why he moved the strap. So all these things about rotation and this, and that was never in the equation for him when he came to me with it to begin with. It was purely, he didn't like the feel of it and he wanted it away from the back of his leg.
He's just a sensitive guy.
He's just a sensitive guy, So, but yeah, so I mean, there's a lot now. I think everything very much is about thigh rise, firmness, 5-hole closure, seal at the ice, like sealing the ice is buzzwords. It's that kind of stuff. You get a lot of just kind of taking away that ice and making sure. I always say to guys to land on the stacks. Like so many guys, it used to be when you were in retail, you saw it. Kids would buy pads so big. Everybody wanted 38-inch pads, they thought,
Yeah.
So you get these kids and they're not even landing on the knee stacks. So if you're not landing on the knee stacks, think of all that space between your knee stack and the top of the pad. Well, if you don't have any force on that knee stack, you're not keeping that leading edge down at the thigh rise.
Yeah, you're
so
never
now you're
holding
at the
it down.
bottom, you're pulling everything up, you're opening more 5-hole than you can imagine.
So
it's these
you get
things,
this kind
right?
of thing.
Exactly. It's that up tilt, that lean back, right? Because you're missing the stack. And what does it do? It loads your straps and pulls everything back on you, right? So you've got to get your knee to the center of that stack to drive that edge to the ice, right? And that's how you get your seal. So those kinds of things, firmness, rebound control, a lot of people talk about big bounce, or soft bounce. And that's kind of the buzzwords of today.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of knowledge out there. There's a lot of people who read a lot and the information is just like, it's everywhere. Right. So there's a lot of info. So you get tons of opinions. So, I could get in these things. There's people who challenge me and it's like, hey, you know what, wear what you want to wear and wear what you like. I'm not going to get into the debate with people with, what's right, what's wrong, what's good, what's bad. If you think I'm going to go tell you that your Bauer pads are no good, I'm not going to say that. You're never going to hear that from me. Pick what you like, whatever works for you, and good on you. It's all good. It's all fine. It's all good gear.
Yeah. It's like, every once in a while you might lose a guy and it's like,
absolutely.
you can't just stop being friends with him, just because Jose Theodore wants to wear an iTech pad and ruin his career.
Exactly. And I when him and I had not a good friendship there for a couple of years and then he came back to me, at the end.
Yeah.
And we patched it up and him and Mike, he owed Mike an apology, but he was good about it. And hey, I lost Carey Price. I lost the best goalie in the world,
Sure. Right.
Now I didn't lose him, but the brand lost him,
That's right.
We lost him. It wasn't great, but it was a pay world. And when you're Vaughn versus CCM, it's like Microsoft versus Bill's computers. Like, what are you going to do? Right. So,
with Reebok, it's a shoe company. Like you're really up against it. There's not much you can do there.
If they want him bad enough, they were going to get him. And they did it. They copied the glove. They got the 600 glove, which was his glove. They made the E-Flex pad or the first, whatever. I think it was an E-Flex was the first one, E-Flex. Yeah.
Well, he did wear, he wore the Reebok Premier too. He wore the Premier. Yeah, and then they said, because it was like, oh, he wants to wear a stiffer pad. And then it was like, oh, we designed this E-Flex because he wanted a softer pad. I was like, okay. Which
was actually built off of his red pair.
Sure. It looked like the pair behind. It looked like the M pad actually. It looked like they
had to do it. He was he felt it was tough when we lost him. It was tough for me because there was that emotional, I've known him, his dad, we're friends. It was hard, and it was hard for him. He didn't enjoy doing it. It was business. I got it. But he got into that Reebok, and for the first little while, it was tough sledding a little bit. I remember even way back in 3 months in, maybe it'd be November, December, I got a text from him one day, and all it said was, "Don't go too far." And I just remember, I'll never forget that text, because you could tell he wasn't, but then they quickly came up with the E-Flex, and they got him and everything, and now I have him back, and it was the biggest thrill to have something where I thought, okay, I could get, that I could be back working with him. I've done the skates with him for years, obviously. We've maintained a friendship, but to have him now, it was a really nice, it was great.
Well, I know certainly I wasn't surprised in the least to see that he was, certainly in amongst the first wave. I mean, I think, but the amazing thing with Carey is that it seems like no matter what he does, he is the guy. If I was going to invest money in even an NHL player, never mind an NHL goalie, if I was going to invest my brand and put a guy on the front page of my catalog, it's Carey Price.
Yeah, I agree.
Because they literally run. And I remember when I had guys who would come in, they'd be once a year, once every 18 months, they'd come in, they'd order Vaughn pads, they'd order whatever he had. And I'm talking guys in their 40s, guys in their 50s.
Yeah.
He switches and they come out with that E-Flex pad, and guys come in and they're like, "Hey, I want to try that CCM pad on." I was like, "Are you sure? You've ordered 8 sets of Vaughn pads from me in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll try that Carey Price one." And it's mind-boggling. They're like 9-year-olds.
Yeah.
I
think the biggest thing with him, and this is a real oddity with him, and we at True Inside, we call him the white whale. Like I always joke when I was doing emails about getting him and is he going to come on board, and I was making him samples and everything was kind of hush hush, and I was the white whale, that's what I call him.
Sure.
So, it's kind of our name. But the funny thing with him is, and you would know this probably better than anybody, but I've always said I would challenge somebody to find me, and this is kind of further to what you just said, but to find me an athlete, in hockey, a player that has impacted a brand and sales more directly than Carey Price.
No,
and
I don't think it exists.
I'm including Crosby, McDavid, Austin Matthews, like you name them, and they're
Ovechkin,
all.
I don't think so either.
I don't think one guy has impacted a category and a brand as much as this guy. It is mind-boggling.
Yep.
Yeah.
He goes for an interview with his jersey and his chest protector off, and he's wearing this gray shirt with these goofy squares in them. And the next day I had a dozen phone calls. Yeah. "Hey, what's that padded shirt that Carey?" Now I happened to carry it at the time. I was lucky. Yeah. I actually knew who to call to get more.
Yeah, well, those were just on the other side of Toronto there, right? What's his name?
Well, they moved. They end up switching distributors. It was an American company.
Yeah.
And there was about 3-4 different places over the next 18 months or so that were distributing it up here. So, and like I said, it was just lucky it was something we happened to have.
Yeah.
And then he goes to that. And then, there were different times I pick up a clearance on Reebok goalie sticks.
Yeah.
And then guys come in and Carey's using the new CCM branded stick the night before. Because you guys got that Carey Price stick in yet? I was like, well, it doesn't really come out until April. Like this is probably in December, I think. I said, but listen, like I got an amazing, like these Reebok sticks are literally half price.
Yeah.
It's the exact stick he's using. And how many do you want? Like I've got every color in the rainbow. And I go, "Oh, that's a good deal. When did you say that Carey Price stick was coming out?" It was
it's just lipstick. Like it's a different lipstick.
It was unbelievable. But and you're right though. I mean, there's not a guy. There's Crosby, Ovechkin.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
John Tavares is not selling any more CCM skates or sticks just because he plays for the Leafs.
Yeah, not a chance.
I will say we do get an awful lot of kids coming in and just asking for a McDavid stick or a Marner stick, but
Right,
not
yeah.
gloves, not helmet,
Right.
not what skates they wear. They'll look for their stick, which is
Yeah, and
which is another true guy, obviously.
Yeah, and ironically
Marner.
for us, like Marner is another guy who I see really moves our brand. He helps our brand. He's amazing, like great kid. I love him. He's such a good kid to work with. But he moves our brand, and he has an impact on our brand, especially here. I think you've got that whole Ontario
Definitely.
factor, right? It might be different if he played wherever, but Pricer, he supersedes the market or anything. Like he could be playing in Anaheim, and he'd be that popular.
You could put him in the smallest market. He could play in Buffalo.
It's unreal.
He could play it wouldn't really matter. He could play in Columbus. He could go play for Seattle.
Yeah, he has a huge allure to him for sure. Yeah.
I know about that. Tough with the Marner thing. It's probably going to be the longest summer of his life this year. I bet.
That was a tough ending for these guys.
That's a hard one. Obviously, good series. Wasn't what anybody expected. Even the Montreal guys. No one was picking.
Yeah.
No one was. But I know they put up the thing, and this guy. Then you see Eric Engels, Leafs in 7. It was like, hey man, it's close.
Yeah.
It's close, but they, yeah. So obviously, I think that stuff works itself out anyway. One more year, and who knows? I don't know. Put my Leaf hat back on.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting.
Okay. Coolest part about your job, biggest drag about your job.
Holy, another really good question. Well, I think the coolest part really, it has to be at this point, because, kind of like anything, right? Whatever you do, I know it sounds crazy when I say it sometimes, and I don't mean to downplay it, but it becomes a job. Okay. Like, I mean, you do it your whole life. These guys are they're just customers, and it becomes a job like anything else. So, but yet at the same time, I could take a step back and be kind of, I get how blessed I am. It's not lost on me what I do. You know what I mean? So I think the coolest part I find now is when I get to take friends and their kids and stuff like that to meet players. I love being able to get an autograph for a kid, or better yet, have them come meet Carrie or whoever, and just watch even Sid, because I did the World Juniors. I have relationship with that whole team. So taking them to meet, say, a Sid or someone like, and just watching kids' eyes and that's awesome. Like, to me, I love that I can do that, or even getting autograph stuff for my buddies. If I get a jersey signed for his office for his 50th birthday, or people love that. They love that connection to these guys. It's just the fabric of who we are in Canada, and that I can provide that very easily, obviously, because of my relationships. I love every opportunity I get to do that,
Yeah.
And then the biggest drag, it would be really hard to, it's long hours right now. Since we took this over, it's been very, very all encompassing for my time. I work late nights at home, and some would look at that as a drag. I'm like 6.5 days a week. I've been working since October, since the season started. But I don't see it as a drag. I could list that and say, yeah, it's kind of, not a lot of free time right now, but it's hard to call that a drag. I really still have an incredible passion for what I do. I love it. So it's hard to find a drag in it.
Well, I think it shows through. I think even just listening to you now, but I know all the times we've talked, and that's hours and hours and hours and hours of tape right there. Yeah. You always have. I think that's, I don't think you'd have been as successful, and I don't think you'd have been doing it as long if you weren't. I think to be, you really are, you're a hockey lifer. Like you're in it,
Oh yeah.
So I think I don't think that someone who isn't, I don't think someone who doesn't have that would stay in your position, or would maybe have, I don't want to say survived, but survived the transition from moving from a Vaughn to moving to a VH, to seeing that through with, so obviously there can't be too much of a drag. You spend a lot of time in airports up until this year. So there's probably some little things like that, you get,
but even that, you're 200 days a year, travel 107 flights or whatever. But you know what, you do that much, and all of a sudden you got some pretty good lounge access. You got some creature comforts for sure, so it's, you get work done in lounges, you get the
Yeah.
Wi-Fi everywhere. So it's whatever, right? Hotels, you're on the road a lot, but the hotels are pretty nice. I'm not staying in Super 8.
I've seen your Facebook feed.
Yeah, it's all right, right? You get to see a lot of hockey games. If I'm in town overnight, player gives me tickets. Boom, I sit in the stands. I watch a game. It's awesome. So it's I muddle through. I muddle through.
Yeah, and the question you never want to get asked again. It's probably what's Kerry wearing right now.
Yeah, that's
any other good ones?
I get a lot of that. Yeah.
Any other good ones?
No, I mean, those types of questions, and even if it's not just Kerry, I get a lot of that. Guys that'll just phone me or text me and go, hey, can you make me Kerry's glove, or can you make me, back when it was, Jonathan Quick stuff, or, sure. Yeah. You know what? I'll make you a deal. I'll make you it. Send in what you want, and I'll make you exactly that.
You tell me what it is about his glove that you like, and I'll make it for you.
If you tell me what you list what Pricer's wearing, and it happens to be his glove, I'll make you it. Yeah. But if you I'm not just going to copy it for you, because you could use a butterfly net and it's not going to do for you what this glove does for him, because you're not him, right?
Well, you might even put your hand in something you get customized, and you might hate it.
Yeah, totally.
And then it's your fault, Yeah. So I know of all the years, and I got pretty particular and pretty obsessive about some things that I wore over the years, and I'd say the two, especially with pads, the two pads that worked out worst for me ever were the two pads I customized the most. I asked for this and I asked for that, and I wanted this side roll changed, and I wanted this angle, and I want the shin to be this length and the boot to be that, and I wanted, and then it just ended up not working. And the other one, I wanted something that they weren't really even making, and they really tried their best to do what I wanted, but the pad just turned out not at all what
and it's funny, you even have that with NHL guys. I have that just half an hour ago before we got on here. I was on with Alex Stalock, and he's I'm making him some pads to try, and I have to say to these guys, because often they'll see that FRS system and they'll be like, maybe I'll just try the old strapping from when I used to wear CCM. And I'm like, listen, like, this stuff is designed by, like, Pat LaFave is a genius, and this guy's a pretty smart dude, whether it's Mike Vaughn or whoever they are. They're smart, handful of smart guys. So it's designed for and tested, and try it. Like,
we put it there for a reason.
Let me put it on there. If you don't like it, we can change it after. But if we just go to your old strapping, you're never going to know. You're not going to know what this thing is. And this FRS system is amazing. Like, Pricer went right into it, and he goes right into nothing. He went right into that. Yeah. So when I tell guys that, okay, I'll try.
Well, exactly. I mean, like I said, they put it there. We put the strap on there for a reason.
Yeah.
There is a reason it's there. So that's the, that FRS, that's essentially what we used to call the professor strap.
It's I guess it's the same, the concept is based
similar. It's in the same location.
Yeah, it's a fast rotation system, but it's it's basically suspends the pad a little bit above your foot in the 20.1 anyways, and it just creates more freedom of movement at the ankle, and and just more mobility for the ankle and the foot, and sets the pad a little higher. But at the same time, because of the chamber, it still creates a really nice connection between the shin and the face of the pad, so you feel very connected or in touch with the pad. It's not like the old Reeboks and where you'd see the over rotation and I'm just spinning everywhere, right? You have a real connection to the face of the pad, and I think guys really like that right now. They're really enjoying this. So
well, if it gives you a little more control and gives you a little better connection, then and you don't have, it doesn't have to be, it's not like it's cranked on your leg anyway.
No, it doesn't have to be tight at all.
It can be worn however you really like it, and then it just allows that.
And even when you're down, it creates, because it has just this wedge setup, it's a real stability, right? So you don't get that front to back teetering. You're very stable. You don't engage your core as much because your stability is there. You don't have to kind of, you know what I mean? Like, you don't have to engage your core to stay balanced, right? So that, again, that's less fatigue, less load on your hips, less load on your knees. Like, it's not just so simple as a pad. It's designed around biomechanics and how your body works and energy saving, and
82
there's
games
a lot going on,
82 games and 200 practices.
Absolutely.
A season.
Yeah.
roughly. You know,
They
you're gonna,
appreciate anything they can save, like in that respect, you know, or the fatigue. And that, you know, when we started with the skates, that was the biggest thing. Guys would say to me, Wardo, I remember Cam saying to me, I just feel so less fatigued because you just don't have to push as hard. You don't have to engage as hard. So over the course of a practice, you don't waste as much energy. You just don't, right? So it's a saving, right? And they appreciate any of that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, I know I've occupied a lot of your time today,
right.
so I want to thank you a lot.
My
You
pleasure.
were the first guy I was going to call when I was setting this up to do this.
I'm happy. I'm honored. Thank you.
I knew this would be the one I wanted to kind of get out to the people first.
Yeah.
And obviously, you lived up to every one of my expectations. So thanks for joining me today, and hopefully we'll get together. Maybe I owe you dinner or something soon.
Awesome, Dana.
When we can get together.
Anytime for you. All right, pal. Take care.
Yeah, thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thanks again for watching, and a big thanks to Jorg and True Hockey for helping make this happen. Please remember to like and subscribe, and we'll let you know when new content is available. That's all for now. We'll see you next time on God Hockey.
So are you just starting this? We're not doing anything yet, right? We're good?
I can cut out anything I want. It's recording already, but it's not like live or anything. You are episode number 1. You are le premier match.
What are you doing this for? What's the kind of the concept? I mean, obviously it's a podcast, but I mean, like for what? Like I just want to do something. There's too many people out there who, you know, the dumb questions you hate seeing over and over and over again. Yeah.
That's part of it. You know, I'll end up doing one about, you know, from a like, if you're a beginner standpoint type of thing. I'm going to do how do you dress your kid for hockey? I'm going to do
cool.
I'm going to do what's the right way to do up your skates, if there is such a thing, but like, what's the best way? What's the most effective way? And
right. And where are you going to launch these? Like what's your viewership going to be, you think?
So I'll go on YouTube, and then I'll do the audio separate, and then I can also put it on all the other platforms if it becomes more of an audio thing. For a lot of them, when I do equipment, obviously the video is probably the better of the two, because it'll be it'll be visual, right? Like you'll want to show somebody something, and that kind of thing. So
you gonna do it with GGSU and stuff too with those guys?
Well, I'm gonna post it there. I'm assuming that especially the early ones that I'm gonna do are gonna be so focused on equipment that a lot of guys are gonna check it out and then get some subscribers from there, and then a few of the other groups that I belong to as well.
Right. Cool.
Yeah. I like it. Well, it's all, you know, like I'm not trying to be Joe Rogan here, you know.
Right. Yeah.
I'm you know, I think it's just interesting, like for anyone who wants to watch it can watch it type of thing, and if it might turn into something, I might start a web page or do some stuff like that. I may do my own commentary. I may you know, some Tom Wilson picks a guy up and slams him on the ice.
Yeah.
Oh, the whole world loses their mind. You know, do I want to comment on it? Do I want to give my thoughts on it?
You're going to be Lonnie Schwartz.
I'm probably going to have him on, actually.